Welcome back, friends. Today we're diving into the story of a true naval monster, an American battleship so fast and powerful that enemies either fled at the sight of her or were destroyed where they stood. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps these legendary stories alive. Anchor. This is the tale of the Iowa-class battleships, the pride of the United States Navy during World War II and beyond. Unlike the lumbering dreadnoughts of the past, these giants were built for speed, capable of reaching an incredible 35 knots. At over 45,000 tons, armed with 9 16-inch guns, and protected by thick armor, they were the perfect combination of speed, firepower, and resilience. When the first of the class, USS Iowa, entered service in 1943, she instantly became one of the most feared ships afloat. She could outrun most battleships and outgun anything that matched her speed. Her main battery could hurl a 2,700-pound shell over 20 miles. Obliterating enemy ships or pounding fortified coastlines into rubble. And with her speed, she could escort fast carrier groups, something no other battleship in the world could manage at the time. Her sisters, USS New Jersey, Missouri, and Wisconsin, soon followed, and together they formed a strike force unlike anything the Axis powers had ever faced. Japanese commanders knew well, engaging one of these ships meant certain destruction. Even Germany's feared Bismarck would have struggled against the might of an Iowa-class battleship. Perhaps the most famous of them all was USS Missouri. It was aboard her decks, in Tokyo Bay, that Japan officially surrendered in 1945, ending World War II. From that moment, the Iowa-class were not just warships, but symbols of American power, speed, and dominance at sea. They were fast, they were deadly, and they were legends. The Iowa-class battleships remain some of the most iconic warships ever built, proof that sometimes size and speed together can create an unstoppable monster. When the Iowa-class battleships first appeared, they shattered the old image of what a battleship could be. For decades, battleships were slow-moving fortresses, designed to trade blows at close range. But the U.S. Navy had a different vision, a ship that could keep up with the fast aircraft carriers, deliver devastating firepower, and still survive under heavy enemy fire. The result was a masterpiece of naval engineering. USS Iowa herself was the first. Laid down in 1940, she was rushed into service by 1943 to join the fight in the Pacific. At nearly 900 feet long, with armor over a foot thick, and 9 16-inch/50 caliber guns, she was a floating fortress. Yet she was fast, astonishingly fast. At 35 knots, over 65 kilometers per hour, she could run with the fastest ships in the fleet. Japanese sailors gave her and her sisters a simple nickname, fast battleships. But to the Americans they were monsters, designed to dominate. Her sister, USS New Jersey, became the most decorated battleship in U.S. history. She fought at the Battle of the Philippine Sea, shelled Japanese positions across the Pacific, and later returned to action in Korea and Vietnam. With her massive guns, she could deliver shore bombardments that shook the earth for miles. Then came USS Missouri, perhaps the most famous battleship in history. She earned glory not only for her wartime service but because it was on her deck, in Tokyo Bay on September 2, 1945, that Japan signed the formal surrender ending World War II. For millions who saw the images of that ceremony, Missouri became the ultimate symbol of victory. Finally, USS Wisconsin, nicknamed the Big Whiskey, joined the fight late but proved just as formidable. She fought in World War II, Korea, and even saw service during Operation Desert Storm in 1991, firing her enormous 16-inch shells against targets in Iraq. Few ships in naval history have had careers stretching across half a century of war. Together, the Iowa-class battleships were the pinnacle of battleship design. They outlived almost all their contemporaries, and when other nations scrapped their giants, America's monsters kept sailing. Even in the age of jets and missiles, their speed and firepower commanded respect. They were not just battleships, they were legends. The enemies who saw them either ran or died where they stood. And today, preserved as museum ships, the Iowa class still remind us of a time when steel giants ruled the seas. And though the age of the battleship faded with the rise of aircraft carriers and missiles, the Iowa class refused to vanish quietly. Decade after decade, they returned to service, upgraded with radar, missiles, and new technologies that allowed them to fight in wars their designers could never have imagined. Vietnam, Korea, the Cold War, even Operation Desert Storm, the thunder of their 16-inch guns echoed across generations. Sailors who served aboard spoke with awe about the raw power of those monsters. When the main guns fired, the entire ship shook, and walls inside the vessel flexed from the concussion. Each shell weighed as much as a small car and could level a building from over 20 miles away. No enemy fortress was safe when an Iowa-class battleship appeared on the horizon. Yet it wasn't just their firepower, it was their presence. Wherever they sailed, they projected fear. Enemies who saw them often withdrew rather than risk destruction. Allies who stood beneath their towering turrets felt reassured, knowing that nothing at sea could match their combination of speed and strength. Today, 4 of them survive as museum ships: Iowa, New Jersey, Missouri, and Wisconsin. Tourists walk their decks, veterans revisit the steel corridors where they once served, and children stand beneath the massive guns in awe. These ships are not just relics, they are monuments. Monuments to a time when America's monsters ruled the waves, and when speed, firepower, and courage combined to create legends. In 1991, during Operation Desert Storm, the world witnessed the final roar of the Iowa-class battleships in combat. USS Missouri and USS Wisconsin were reactivated and sent to the Persian Gulf. By then, they were nearly half a century old, but still unmatched in sheer intimidation. Their massive 16-inch guns hurled shells the size of Volkswagens into Iraqi positions, blasting bunkers, command centers, and supply lines with terrifying precision. But these giants were no longer limited to just their old guns. They had been modernized with Tomahawk cruise missiles, a new generation of weaponry that allowed them to strike hundreds of miles inland. From the rolling waves of the Gulf, the battleships launched missiles that flew across deserts and struck Baghdad with deadly accuracy. It was a stunning display, the perfect marriage of World War II steel and Cold War technology. For the sailors aboard, it felt like standing on the shoulders of giants. They were carrying the legacy of men who had fought at Leyte Gulf, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. Each salvo reminded the world that these ships were not relics, but living war machines, still capable of shaping the battlefield. And yet, as the war ended, so too did the age of the battleship. The Iowa class were retired once more, this time for good. They had survived across eras, fought in multiple wars, and served as floating fortresses for nearly 50 years. Now they rest as museums, silent but eternal, their guns raised toward the sky as if waiting for one last battle. They were monsters of steel and fire, born in World War II, reborn in the Cold War, and remembered as the fastest, most fearsome battleships ever to sail. Their story is one of power, endurance, and legend, and though they no longer patrol the seas, the name Iowa class will forever command respect. Even after their retirement, the legacy of the Iowa class battleships continues to shape naval history. Naval historians still debate whether their unmatched combination of speed, firepower, and resilience could ever be recreated, while modern naval engineers study their design as a testament to what steel, determination, and ingenuity could achieve. Veterans who served aboard speak of them not as ships, but as living, breathing beasts of war, with personalities forged in fire and salt water. USS Missouri remains perhaps the most symbolic, her decks forever immortalized as the place where World War II officially ended. Standing on her steel surface in Pearl Harbor today, visitors can feel the weight of history beneath their feet, imagining the moment when the Empire of Japan surrendered and a new world order was born. USS New Jersey, Iowa, and Wisconsin stand in different parts of the United States, silent guardians of memory. Their enormous guns, still pointing toward the horizon, remind every visitor that these ships once held the power to alter the course of nations. The Iowa class represented more than weapons. They embodied the spirit of a nation that needed to project strength across two oceans. They showed the world that sometimes, size and speed could coexist in one fearsome creation. No enemy ship ever dared to challenge them in a straight fight, and their very presence could decide the outcome of a battle before the first shell was fired. They were the last of their kind, the ultimate evolution of the battleship era. And though time has moved on to carriers, submarines, and drones, the Iowa class still stand as legends, symbols of power, endurance, and the indomitable will of those who sailed them. And so the story of the Iowa class battleships comes to an end not in defeat, but in triumph. They were born in a world at war, survived across 5 decades of conflict, and retired not because they were beaten, but because the world itself had changed. No ship ever sank them, no enemy ever outran them, and no battle ever broke their steel resolve. Today, as they rest in harbors across America, they are not ghosts but monuments. Each one stands as a living reminder of the power of human engineering and the courage of the sailors who brought them to life. To walk their decks is to walk through history, from World War II to the Cold War, from Korea to Desert Storm. The Iowa class were monsters of speed and fire, guardians of oceans, and symbols of an era when steel giants ruled the seas. Though they no longer thunder across the waves, their legacy endures. Whenever we speak of naval legends, their names, Iowa, New Jersey, Missouri, Wisconsin, will always rise with pride. Friends, if this story inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. The legends of the sea live on because we remember them, and together, we'll keep their stories alive for generations to come.